Starting lesson 2 of chapter 6, which is to solve linear systems by substitution. So we're going to use the substitution method to solve systems. Then we'll do a multi-step problem and then a real-world problem. Substitution is the preferred method for many people because it makes sense to them. So for example, we have y equals 2x plus 4. And then we have 3x plus 2y equals 15. Well, here I know exactly what 1y equals. So therefore, this is the same as 1y. So I could plug 2x plus 4 in for y here, and I could rewrite my equation. I could do 3x plus 2 times 2x plus 4, and that equals 15. Doing this, I can now solve for x. And once I solve for x, I can plug that into the equation and solve for y. So I would have 3x plus 2 times 2x would be 4x, plus 2 times 4 is 8, equals 15. 3x plus 4x is 7x. Subtract both sides by 8. So 7x equals 7. You divide both sides by 7, and that would give us x equals 1. So now I know x equals 1 in these equations, and I could plug that into here and solve for y. Y equals 2 times 1, which is 2, plus 4, and that's 6. So y equals 6, and therefore my answer would be 1 and 6. So let's apply this knowledge to the next problems. We have this linear system. Y equals 3x plus 2, and then x plus 2y equals 11. So let's do that same thing. I see that 1y equals this, so let's plug this in for y. X plus 2 times 3x plus 2, because that's the y, and that equals 11. So now I have x plus 6x plus 4 equals 11. So now I have 7x, subtract the 4 from both sides. This is going to look kind of like our last one, because it's be 7x equals 7. Divide both sides by 7, and therefore x equals 1. Now that I know that x equals 1, I could plug it into either of these equations and get my y. This one looks easier, so let's choose that one. So y equals 3x plus 2. Y equals 3 times 1 plus 2. So therefore y equals 3 plus 2, so y equals 5. So x equals 1, y equals 5, so therefore my coordinate point would be 1 and 5. Now we need to substitute with these two ones, and I notice that there's no y equals or x equals here, but we can create it that way. Why don't we do it for x here, because it's all alone. We could add 2y to both sides. So if we do that, add 2y, add 2y. Therefore, in this one, x equals negative 6 plus 2y. I always like to write it like 2y minus 6. So here's our first equation. Now that I know what 1x equals, I can plug this in for x. So therefore, for this one here, we could say 4 times x, which is 2y minus 6, plus 6y, and that equals 4. 4 times 2 is 8y, minus 4 times 6 is 24, plus 6y equals 4. Then I could add 24 to both sides. Therefore, it's 28. 8y plus 6y. Remember, I always take the sign before. That'd be 14y. So 14y equals 4 plus 24, which is 28. Divide both sides by 14. Therefore, y equals 28 divided by 14, which is 2. Now that I know what y equals, I can plug that into here and solve for x. So x is 2y minus 6. So x is 2 times 2 minus 6. 2 times 2 is 4. So 4 minus 6. So therefore x equals negative 2. So we have x is negative 2, y is positive 2. My answer would be negative 2 for x and 2 for y, and that's my coordinate point. Let's look at a multi-step problem. Many businesses pay website hosting companies to store and maintain the computer files that make up their websites. Internet service providers also offer website hosting. The costs for the website hosting offered by a website hosting company and an internet service provider are shown in the table. Find the number of months after which the total cost for website hosting will be the same for both companies. So when you're looking for something like this usually tells you that it's a system here. So if I'm going to go with the internet service provider, I pay that $10 startup fee, and then I pay $21.95 a month. If I was going to write that out, my cost would be 21.95 times X per month, right? Plus the $10 I pay. For this one, the website hosting company, no startup fee, but $22.45 a month, a little bit more. So that would be Y equals 22.45x, but then plus 0 or just nothing. So now I can solve for this equation by finding x, and that would be the number of months, right? That's what we need to find. So we only need to find that x. Well, since I know y equals 22.45x, I could plug that in for y over here. So I could rewrite this equation. 22.45x equals 21.95x plus 10. Subtract 21.95 from both sides. And that would be 0.5x equals 10. So if I divide both sides by 0.5, I would have x equals 10 divided by 0.5 is 20. So that would tell me after 20 months, when x is 20, they would be exactly the same. So after 21 months, this would probably become more expensive because you're paying more per month. So we'll say 20 months for our answer. Here's our real world problem. For extremely cold temperatures, an automobile manufacturer recommends that a 70% antifreeze and 30% water mix be used in the cooling system of a car. How many quarts of pure 100% antifreeze and 50% antifreeze and 50% water mix should be combined to make 11 quarts of 70% antifreeze and 30% water mix? Well, our first equation is going to be pretty easy. We need to have a total of 11 quarts. We don't know how many of the 100% we need. We don't know how many of the 50-50 we need. Well, we can make x 100%, so x plus y, so the amount of the 100%, the amount of the 50%, equals a total of 11 quarts. There's our first equation. Our second equation will take a little bit more work. If we look at the amount of antifreeze, 100%, if we change that to a decimal, would just be 1, right? So we would say 1 times x, the amount of antifreeze times x, plus the amount of antifreeze in the y, which would be 50%. Make that a decimal, that would be 0.5 y, equals what? We need 70% antifreeze, so 0.7. So 70% antifreeze of 11, of the 11 quarts, so times 11. So this would tell me how much antifreeze I need, 70% of 11. So here's my other equation. I can just write x like that. So now that I have my two equations, this becomes a lot easier. I can subtract the y from both sides. So that would give me x equals 11 minus y, or negative y plus 11. So there's my x value at negative y plus 11. So I can plug that into this equation here. So we would have negative y plus 11, and then plus 0.5y equals 0.7 times 11. Then if we simplify this, 0.7 times 11 would be 7.7. So that's how much antifreeze we need total in quarts. Negative y plus 0.5y, that would give me negative 0.5 plus 11, and that equals 7.7. Subtract the 11 from both sides. 7.7 minus 11 would be negative 3.3. So we have negative 0.5y equals negative 3.3. Divide both sides by negative 0.5. So negative 3.3 divided by negative 0.5, negative divided by a negative. So 3.3 divided by 0.5, that's a positive 6.6. So we know that y needs to be a positive 6.6. Remember what the y stood for? The y stood for the 50-50 mix. So that tells me out of a total of 11 quarts, 6.6 of those need to be the 50-50 mix. So 6.6 quarts of 50-50 mix. And then how many of the other types? Well, we can just do 11 minus 6.6 to get that answer. And that would be 4.4 quarts of the whole 100%. So just to recap, we knew that it took a total of 11, so we did the 100% plus the 50% equals 11 quarts. Then we found our equation here. 100% is just 1, plus 50% is 0.5 times y, equals the total amount of antifreeze, which is 70% of 11 quarts. Using these two systems, we solved it and got our amount of quarts.